Picture this. You're standing in front of a mirror in a dimly lit room. As you stare at your reflection, you notice something unsettling. Behind your familiar face, there's another presence, a shadow figure that seems to move independently, carrying all the emotions you've spent years pushing down, all the anger you've swallowed, all the grief you've refused to feel. This shadow doesn't disappear when you look away. Instead, it grows stronger, more demanding, whispering through your anxieties, your unexplained fatigue, your mysterious physical ailments that doctors can't quite explain. Here's the question that will change everything. What if the very emotions you're trying to escape are actually the keys to your psychological freedom? What if every suppressed feeling you've buried is not gone, but instead has transformed into an invisible prison that's controlling your life in ways you never imagined? I'm about to share with you Carl Jung's most revolutionary insight about the human psyche, a discovery so profound that it will completely transform how you understand your emotional world, and why your body and mind sometimes feel like they're working against you. But first, let me tell you the story of how Jung himself discovered this hidden mechanism that rules our inner lives. It was 1909, and Carl Jung was already making waves in the psychiatric community. But what happened next would shake the foundations of everything he believed about the human mind. Jung began experiencing what he would later call his confrontation with the unconscious, a period of intense psychological turmoil that lasted nearly 6 years. During this time, he was plagued by vivid, disturbing dreams, sudden emotional outbursts, and physical symptoms that seemed to have no medical cause. One night, Jung dreamed he was walking through his house when he discovered a door he had never seen before. Behind this door lay a staircase leading deep underground. As he descended, the walls became more primitive, more ancient. At the bottom, he found a cave filled with skulls, bones, and strange artifacts. But what terrified him most wasn't what he saw. It was what he felt. An overwhelming surge of emotions he had spent his entire professional life trying to understand and control. Rage, terror, grief, and a deep, primal longing he couldn't name. When Jung woke up, he realized something extraordinary. These weren't just random dream images. They were his own suppressed emotions, dressed up in symbolic form, demanding his attention. Every feeling he had intellectualized away, every emotion he had deemed unprofessional or inappropriate, every impulse he had pushed down in the name of being a respectable doctor and scholar, they were all there in that underground cave of his psyche, growing stronger in the darkness. This revelation led Jung to one of his most important discoveries. Suppressed emotions don't simply disappear. They transform into what he called complexes, autonomous clusters of psychic energy that operate independently of our conscious will. Think of them as emotional tumors in the psyche, growing in the shadows, affecting every aspect of our lives while remaining largely invisible to our conscious awareness. But here's where Jung's insight becomes truly fascinating. He discovered that these emotional complexes don't just stay confined to our inner world. They manifest in our physical bodies, our relationships, our career patterns, our recurring life dramas, and even our seemingly random thoughts and impulses. It's as if the suppressed emotions develop their own intelligence, their own agenda, constantly trying to break through into consciousness through whatever channel they can find. Let me give you a modern example that Jung would have found fascinating. Sarah, a successful marketing executive, came to therapy because she couldn't understand why she kept sabotaging her relationships. Every time a romantic partner got close, she would find fault with them, create unnecessary conflicts, or simply disappear emotionally. She described feeling like there was another person inside who would take over whenever intimacy became too threatening. Through our work together, we discovered that when Sarah was 7 years old, her father left the family without explanation. Her mother, overwhelmed with grief and financial stress, couldn't provide the emotional support Sarah needed. So Sarah did what many children do. She buried her abandonment pain so deep that she forgot it existed. She became the strong one, the independent one, the one who never needed anyone. But that abandoned 7-year-old didn't disappear. She formed what Jung would call a complex, a cluster of memories, emotions, and defensive patterns that operated autonomously in Sarah's psyche. Whenever Sarah's adult self wanted to experience intimacy, this complex would activate, flooding her system with the old terror of abandonment and compelling her to reject others before they could reject her. The remarkable thing is that Sarah had no conscious awareness of this pattern. She genuinely believed she was making rational decisions about her relationships. The complex was operating below the threshold of consciousness, like a hidden computer program running in the background, influencing her choices while remaining invisible to her rational mind. This is what Jung meant when he said that suppressed emotions become autonomous complexes. They develop their own life, their own goals, their own methods of expression, and because they operate unconsciously, we experience their influence as external forces, bad luck, other people's problems, physical symptoms, or mysterious self-sabotaging behaviors. Jung discovered that these complexes follow predictable patterns. First, they try to express themselves directly through dreams, fantasies, and slips of the tongue. If we ignore these subtle communications, they escalate to emotional symptoms, unexplained anxiety, depression, irritability, or numbness. If we continue to suppress them, they move into the body, manifesting as tension, headaches, digestive issues, chronic pain, or mysterious illnesses that doctors struggle to diagnose. But the complexes don't stop there. They begin to influence our external choices, drawing us toward situations and people that will trigger the very emotions we're trying to avoid. Jung called this synchronicity, meaningful coincidences that seem to conspire to bring our suppressed material into consciousness. We keep attracting the same type of difficult boss, the same kind of unavailable partner, the same financial crises, because the complex is trying to complete itself, to bring the buried emotion to the surface where it can finally be processed and integrated. Think about your own life for a moment. Are there patterns you keep repeating despite your best intentions? Relationships that follow the same destructive script? Career situations that trigger the same stress response? Physical symptoms that flare up during emotional periods? These might be signs that suppressed emotions have formed complexes that are running your life from behind the scenes. Jung's genius was recognizing that these complexes aren't pathological. They're actually the psyche's attempt to heal itself. Every suppressed emotion contains valuable information about our needs, our boundaries, our authentic desires. When we push these emotions underground, we're not just avoiding temporary discomfort, we're cutting ourselves off from essential aspects of our own vitality and wisdom. The 7-year-old part of Sarah that felt abandoned wasn't just carrying pain. She was also carrying Sarah's capacity for deep love, for vulnerability, for the kind of intimacy that creates genuine connection. By suppressing the abandonment trauma, Sarah had also suppressed her ability to truly bond with others. The complex was trying to bring this capacity back into her conscious awareness, even if it meant creating painful relationship patterns to do so. This brings us to one of Jung's most radical insights. The path to psychological freedom doesn't involve getting rid of our difficult emotions or complexes. Instead, it involves learning to dialogue with them, to understand what they're trying to communicate, and to gradually integrate their wisdom into our conscious personality. Jung called this process active imagination, a technique for establishing conscious communication with the autonomous contents of the unconscious. Instead of trying to suppress or control our complexes, we learn to engage with them as we would with separate personalities that live within us. We ask them what they want, what they're trying to protect us from, what they need from us to feel safe and heard. When Sarah learned to dialogue with her abandoned inner child, something remarkable happened. Instead of this part sabotaging her relationships, it began serving as an early warning system, alerting her when she was moving too fast or when a potential partner showed signs of being emotionally unavailable. The same complex that had been her greatest obstacle became one of her greatest resources for creating healthy intimacy. But Jung discovered something even more profound about the nature of suppressed emotions. He found that our personal complexes are often connected to what he called archetypal patterns, universal themes that appear across all cultures and throughout history. The abandoned child, the wounded lover, the angry warrior, the grieving mother, these aren't just personal experiences, they're expressions of fundamental human experiences that connect us to the collective unconscious of our species. This means that when we engage with our suppressed emotions, we're not just healing our personal wounds, we're connecting with the deepest layers of human experience. We're tapping into the same emotional currents that have moved human beings for thousands of years. This connection to the archetypal dimension is what gives Jung's approach its unique power to create lasting transformation. Let me share another example that illustrates this archetypal dimension. Michael, a soft-spoken accountant, came to therapy because he was experiencing what he called rage attacks, sudden explosions of anger that seemed completely out of character. These episodes were destroying his marriage and making him afraid of his own emotional capacity. As we explored Michael's history, we discovered that he had grown up in a family where anger was absolutely forbidden. His father was an angry, volatile man whose outbursts terrified the family. Michael's mother dealt with this by becoming extremely conflict avoidant, teaching Michael that good people never get angry, that anger is dangerous and destructive. So Michael suppressed his natural aggressive energy for decades, becoming the nice guy who never rocked the boat. But the anger didn't disappear. It formed a complex that Jung would have recognized as connected to the archetypal warrior energy. This warrior complex was trying to emerge into consciousness, but because Michael had no healthy relationship with his own aggressive instincts, it could only express itself through explosive outbursts. Through our work together, Michael learned to dialogue with his inner warrior. He discovered that this energy wasn't destructive. It was actually trying to protect his boundaries, his values, his sense of personal integrity. When he learned to channel this energy constructively, his rage attacks stopped. More importantly, he began to stand up for himself in healthy ways, set appropriate boundaries, and paradoxically became much more capable of genuine intimacy with his wife. This is the profound truth Jung discovered. Our suppressed emotions aren't obstacles to overcome. They're aspects of our complete self that are trying to emerge into consciousness. Every complex contains not just wounded material, but also unrealized potential, creative energy, and essential life force that we need to become whole human beings. But here's what makes Jung's approach truly revolutionary. He discovered that the process of integrating our suppressed emotions isn't just about personal healing. It's about psychological and spiritual evolution. Each time we successfully dialogue with a complex and integrate its energy into our conscious personality, we become more complete, more authentic, more capable of living from our true center rather than from defensive patterns formed in childhood. Jung called this process individualization, the gradual development of a conscious relationship with all aspects of our psyche, both light and dark. It's not about becoming perfect or eliminating our difficulties. It's about becoming whole, becoming who we truly are beneath all the layers of suppression and social conditioning. Think about the emotions you've been working hardest to avoid, the anger you've been swallowing, the grief you've been postponing, the fear you've been minimizing, the longing you've been dismissing as unrealistic. According to Jung, these aren't signs of weakness or pathology. They're invitations from your unconscious to reclaim lost aspects of your authentic self. But Jung also warned us about the dangers of this process. When we begin to dialogue with our suppressed emotions, we're essentially opening the door to parts of ourselves that have been operating autonomously for years or even decades. This can initially feel destabilizing, even frightening. The emotions may seem overwhelming, the insights may challenge our existing identity, and the changes required may feel too big to handle. This is why Jung emphasized the importance of what he called holding the tension of the opposites. Instead of either suppressing our difficult emotions or being overwhelmed by them, we learn to create a conscious container strong enough to hold both our light and dark aspects simultaneously. We develop what he called the transcendent function, the ability to stand in the center of our experience and integrate opposing energies into a more complete sense of self. This process requires what Jung called moral courage, the willingness to face aspects of ourselves that we'd rather deny, to feel emotions we'd rather avoid, and to take responsibility for parts of our personality that we'd rather project onto others. It's not easy work, but Jung believed it was the most important work a human being could undertake. As we near the end of our journey together today, I want to share with you the promised revelation, Jung's most practical insight about working with suppressed emotions. He discovered that the key to transformation isn't analyzing our complexes or trying to understand them intellectually. The key is learning to establish what he called a living relationship with them. Here's Jung's revolutionary three-step process for transforming suppressed emotions into sources of vitality and wisdom. First, recognition. Learn to notice when a complex is active. This might feel like being triggered by situations that seem disproportionate to your reaction, finding yourself in repetitive patterns despite your best intentions, or experiencing physical symptoms during emotionally charged periods. The key is developing what Jung called witness consciousness, the ability to observe your own reactions without immediately trying to fix or change them. Second, dialogue. Instead of trying to get rid of difficult emotions, learn to engage with them as you would with a separate person living inside you. Ask them directly, "What do you want me to know? What are you trying to protect me from? What do you need from me to feel safe and heard?" Jung discovered that our complexes are actually quite willing to communicate once we approach them with genuine curiosity rather than judgment or resistance. Third, integration. As you develop a relationship with your suppressed emotions, begin to find healthy ways to express their energy in your daily life. If you discover suppressed anger, find constructive ways to assert your boundaries. If you find suppressed grief, create rituals to honor your losses. If you find suppressed joy, give yourself permission to experience pleasure and celebration. The goal isn't to eliminate the complex, but to bring its energy into conscious partnership with your adult self. Jung believed that when we complete this process with one major complex, it creates a domino effect throughout our entire psychological system. We become more authentic, more creative, more capable of genuine intimacy, and more able to access what he called our unlived life, all the potential that's been locked away in our suppressed emotions. But perhaps most importantly, Jung discovered that this individual work of integration connects us to something larger than ourselves. As we reclaim our suppressed emotions, we begin to access what he called the collective unconscious, the shared psychological heritage of humanity. We discover that our personal struggles are expressions of universal themes, and our individual healing contributes to the healing of the collective human psyche. This is Jung's ultimate promise, that the journey into our suppressed emotions isn't just about personal therapy. It's about psychological and spiritual evolution, both for ourselves and for our species. Every emotion we integrate, every complex we transform, Every aspect of shadow we bring into consciousness makes us more complete human beings and contributes to the evolution of human consciousness itself. So I leave you with this challenge. What emotion have you been working hardest to avoid? What pattern keeps repeating in your life despite your best efforts to change it? What physical symptom or emotional reaction seems to have a life of its own? These might be doorways to aspects of yourself that are waiting to be reclaimed, integrated, and transformed into sources of wisdom and vitality. Jung's work shows us that we don't have to be victims of our suppressed emotions. We can become conscious partners with all aspects of our psyche, creating lives of greater authenticity, creativity, and connection. The shadow that haunts you in the mirror isn't your enemy. It's your invitation to wholeness. If this exploration of Jung's insights has sparked something in you, I invite you to subscribe to this channel and share this video with others who might be ready to begin their own journey of integration. In our next video, we'll dive even deeper into Jung's revolutionary approach to dream interpretation and how our nighttime visions serve as direct communications from our unconscious complexes. The path to psychological freedom doesn't involve escaping your difficult emotions. It involves learning to dance with them. And as Jung discovered, that dance is the most important choreography you'll ever learn. Remember, you are not broken. You are not too much. You are not too little. You are a complete human being whose suppressed emotions are simply aspects of your authentic self that are ready to come home. The question isn't whether you're strong enough to handle this journey, it's whether you're brave enough to begin.